Motivation isn't something that you wait for. It is something that you create. It's actually like coasting downhill when you are riding a bike. But in order for you to be able to coast downhill, you gotta ride up the hill first and foremost. But if you wait for motivation to appear, it is like you waiting at the bottom of that hill, wondering why nothing is happening. Action fuels motivation, not the other way around. All right, so when it comes to motivation, we tend to put the cart before the horse, thinking that we need motivation in order for us to get started to promote behavior change. When in actuality, in order for us to promote behavior change, we need to effectively set specific goals for ourselves. Setting specific goals is what's going to allow us to generate the motivation that is needed to keep going. We need to have a target in mind, otherwise we are never gonna start pedaling that bike up that hill. It is up to us to generate that momentum. And like we all know, riding up that hill, the first little bit is a battle, right? It feels very tiring, very fatiguing, and we don't know if we are gonna make it. But once we get that momentum going, once we start pedaling, it's not that it gets easier, but we generate that momentum that is needed and we see that light at the end of the tunnel. And then once we get to the top of the hill and we have really fully generated that motivation, it is like coasting downhill. So taking the time to effectively set your goals first and foremost is step number one. So to do that, we are going to set up a goal hierarchy. I highly recommend you take some notes today because this is gonna be extremely helpful. So you may think like, okay, well, my goals are to get to the gym more. My goals are to lose 10 pounds. We need to scale things back even more when it comes to goal setting. So step number one is to determine your purpose. Why are you doing all of these things? And of course, this can relate to anything. It doesn't have to be just fitness. Obviously, this is a fitness channel, so I'll always relate this to fitness. But you can relate it to your business goals, your relationship goals, whatever the case may be, it's all relative. But you need to ask yourself, like, why am I doing all of this? Why do I need to lose 20 pounds? Why do I need to go to the gym more? What's my purpose? You need to create an identity-based goal for yourself. So that's step number one. I have this right here, but I'll show it to you guys a little bit later, okay? Just wanna kind of break it down for you first and foremost. So having an identity-based goal, it allows you to generate the motivation that is needed when it is lacking, because we don't always feel like going to the gym, right? But if we know why we are doing it, that's how we can create that momentum and start pedaling again when we don't always feel like it. So an example of an identity-based goal, maybe it's to be an athlete. Maybe it's to be a role model for your kids. Maybe it's just to be a healthy person, a consistent person. Even if you don't think that you're that type of person right now, if you say it enough and you start to take action that is in line with that identity, you're gonna start to feel it more. And you're gonna start to become that person where the identity-based goal is no longer a goal, it's just who you are. So say it's to be a healthy person. So that's step number one. Why are you doing this? What is your identity-based goal? Once you know what your why is, you can take it a step further and determine what is known as intermediate goals. So intermediate goals provide you a direction. This is the type of goals that people typically set, okay? It gives you a direction. So I wanna lose 20 pounds. That's an intermediate goal. I wanna go to the gym more. I wanna sleep better. I wanna manage my stress. I wanna eat more protein. Those are very general intermediate goals that give you some direction. So that's great. Then we want to take it a step further and be even more specific with these intermediate goals. And this is known as superordinate goals. So these are very specific points of action where you want to take your intermediate goals and make it even more specified. So say you want to eat more vegetables. Okay, well, what's the more specific direction with that? I'm going to eat 2 servings of vegetables 3 days a week. being that specific with your superordinate goals, again, gives you a more clear direction, and you're more likely to actually follow through with that if you have it put in your calendar, if you have it scheduled, even if you just know like, okay, like I'm gonna go to the gym more. A superordinate goal would be, I'm gonna go to the gym on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. When you actually say that out loud, you're gonna hold yourself accountable to that. Whereas if you say, I'm gonna go to the gym more, great, we should all go to the dentist, but are we gonna go to the dentist unless we actually schedule that appointment? Of course not. We have to actually take the time to schedule those things in, otherwise we aren't gonna follow through. So just to give you an overview of everything that I just said here, okay? So maybe just take notes of this right here, and this is how you can set up your goal setting effectively for yourself. So at the top here, why? Like, why are we doing all of this? Our why goal, right? Maybe it's to be a healthy person, to be an athlete, to be a role model. I won't reiterate all of that, but for my example, I wrote to be healthy. So once we know our identity, our why, our purpose, then we can move down towards our intermediate goals. So what does a healthy person do, right? This is gonna give you some direction of how you can set some intermediate goals. If you wanna be healthy, well, what's a healthy person gonna do? They're gonna prioritize their sleep, right? They're gonna eat more vegetables. They are going to exercise regularly. Obviously, this isn't an exhausted list here, but you can kind of get a general idea of how this layout works. Once you have determined your intermediate goals, you're gonna take it a step further and be even more specific with these intermediate goals. And what I have written down here, obviously I don't have a whole heck of a lot of room on the whiteboard. I would be even more specific. So starting over on this side, right? If we want to prioritize more sleep, that's our intermediate goal. How are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna establish a bedtime routine. I would, again, be even more specific with that. What is that gonna look like? I'm gonna start winding down 60 minutes before bed, and I'm gonna have a skincare routine and do 10 minutes of stretching and make sure that I'm not on my phone. That is gonna be an effective superordinate goal. The more specific you can be, the better. Same thing here when it comes to consuming more vegetables. I am going to consume 3 servings of vegetables every single day. I am going to take the time to pre-cut them and have them prepped and ready to go, so that way I can grab them every single day and focus on having 3 servings a day. Same thing with exercising more as our intermediate goal. To make that even more specified, I'm gonna go to the gym Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 5 p.m. after work on my way home. And then I'm gonna do cardio on Saturdays, whether that be getting up, going for a walk, going to the gym and getting some cardio in. Being super specified with those superordinate goals is extremely important. Now, motivation pertains to a goal. That is why the first half of the video of setting specific goals for yourself is extremely important. That is what's going to allow you to generate the momentum. Now, how can we sustain motivation? Well, motivation operates on a spectrum. We have low quality motivation and high quality motivation. And for a lot of individuals, when they are first starting out, their motivation falls on the lower quality end of the spectrum. So if we take a look at this graph here, we can see that we have low quality motivation, which is also known as extrinsic motivation. That's where we are motivated from external factors. So say we want to look good in a bikini. That is an example of an external motivator, right? Not that that's a bad thing, but once you get there and you achieve that, motivation goes away, right? So we want to try to move towards having higher quality motivation, also known as intrinsic motivation, where we don't need to rely on external factors to feel motivated. It comes from within. So when it comes to motivation, we need to move the needle from feeling like we have low quality motivation and move it towards a higher quality motivation. So when it comes to creating intrinsic motivation, there are 3 psychological needs that we want to try to chase when it comes to a specific task. So when you are setting these goals for yourself, we want to kind of audit them to make sure that they try to meet these psychological needs. And that's what's going to allow you to sustain motivation, okay? So let's break down what these 3 psychological needs are, and then we'll go over an example. So to create intrinsic motivation, like I said, we need to chase these 3 psychological needs of a task. We need to make sure that we feel that we have autonomy, competence, and relatedness. So autonomy is feeling a sense of authentic choice of what one does. So the independence of our exercise selection, feeling like we have autonomy over our choices. That's going to be very important when it comes to sustaining motivation. The next is competence. So we need to feel like we are capable of achieving a desired outcome. We need to make sure that we feel confident as well too. And obviously, if you're just starting out in the gym, that's gonna come in time. And we have to have that understanding like, hey, maybe we don't feel competent right now, but just like riding the bike uphill, it is gonna get easier as long as we stick to it. And the last one here is relatedness, meaning we need to have some sort of meaningful connection to others. So if we don't feel like we are being understood, if we don't feel like we are being supported, it is gonna be very difficult to sustain motivation. So our environment is extremely important. If you don't have a supportive spouse, I take my hat off to you. That is not an easy task whatsoever. If you are surrounded by coworkers who are constantly giving you a hard time, again, you're not getting that psychological need of relatedness, and maintaining your motivation is gonna be a struggle. So what can we do with some of these things? Firstly, let's talk about autonomy. Making sure that you are doing something that you enjoy, where you feel like you have a certain level of independence, is important. So say you hire a fitness coach and your coach programs for you to do back squats and you hate back squats, you would rather do goblet squats. If your coach says to you like, no, you need to do as I say and do back squats because it's better, it's more optimal, you're not gonna have autonomy. And yeah, maybe in the beginning you're like, oh, okay, I hired my coach, I should listen to them. Yeah, maybe to some degree, but you still need to have some level of independence with your choices and your preferences. A good coach is gonna recognize that and understand like, okay, if you don't like back squats, your motivation is gonna dwindle if I make you do back squats. I'm gonna listen to you and give you the independence to choose. If you would prefer to do goblet squats, we will go ahead and do goblet squats. That's an example of how you can create autonomy with exercise. Same thing with nutrition. This is why I don't like people following meal plans. You have zero autonomy if I tell you what to eat. I would rather you make that choice for yourself versus me telling you what to eat, because my preferences are gonna be different than your preferences. Yeah, you know what? Maybe I like a Volkswagen, you may like a Honda Civic. Both vehicles are gonna get you to your destination, so you might as well drive the vehicle that you prefer. Those are some common examples of autonomy, and that is imperative when it comes to sustaining motivation. The next thing I briefly mentioned was competence, right? Same thing if you are new to the gym. You're not gonna always feel 100% competent, and that's normal. For a lot of people, competence does come in time, and you do have to weather that storm. However, though, don't run before you can walk. You know, if you can't do specific exercises because you've never been to the gym before, start off slow. Don't jump into the weight room right away. Don't jump under the barbell right away. Building up your confidence is going to allow you to get there a lot quicker. But trying to make sure that you understand like, hey, if I don't feel competent right now, I need to work on it so that way I eventually do. And then once I feel more competent with the task at hand, that's when motivation is really gonna kick in. And then lastly, when it comes to relatedness, it's very difficult if you're not on the same page with your support system. Your spouse, your friends, your family, your coworkers, if they are constantly giving you a hard time, I get it. It is difficult. But like I said, it is so important for us to see what we can do to surround ourselves with like-minded people. So go back to your identity-based goal. You want to be a healthy person, surround yourself with other healthy people. And I'm not saying to get a divorce if your husband is a smoker, a drinker, and you're trying to be healthy and he is not. I'm not saying you need to divorce him or her, but all I'm saying is that taking the time to see if you can surround yourself with other individuals. So go and see if you can join a community, go to a gym, go to a workout group class, go to some yoga sessions, surround yourself with other individuals, and then lead by example. I see this so much. Like, don't lose all hope here. More often than not, a lot of husbands, they come around, or if it's the other way around, where it's the wife and the husband is the one trying to be healthy, the wives come around. If you lead by example, your spouse is gonna see like, okay, like you're looking a lot better, your skin's a lot better, you have more energy than me. What are you doing? Can you teach me what you're doing? Can you show me the ropes a little bit here? Quite often, they do tend to come around, especially if you stick to it. And then once they come around, obviously that's going to allow you to create that relatedness that is needed for you to sustain your motivation. So going back to the goal setting pyramid that we did at the beginning, take the time to audit all of the tasks that you wrote out for yourself and make sure that you are moving that needle to a higher quality of motivation. Analyzing the autonomy, the competence, and the relatedness factors with each of these tasks, and see if there's ways for you to adjust anything if it is needed. And then finally, you may need to go back to your goals later on in the future. If for whatever reason you're finding like, okay, I'm motivated after putting in the work from today's video, but 6 months from now, that motivation is completely gone, that's okay. That is normal. That is just a call to action that you need to reevaluate things. You need to do this process all over again because your goals may have changed. Maybe your identity-based goal has changed. People evolve. We're always trying to be better as human beings, and what your original goals were right now, they may change in 6 months from now. So if your goals change, and obviously your motivation is going to change as well too. So taking the time to reevaluate these things and restructure these things so that way you can keep the needle moving forward for your future self is going to be imperative.